transfer seminar. As you may know now, the Singapore Doctoral Program starts with the DBA, but there is an opportunity for students who believe that their contribution has shifted and changed to the nature of a PhD. So these are both level 10 AQF qualifications for us, but they're in Australia, but there is a difference in contribution between a DBA and a PhD. A DBA tends to focus more on contributions to practice, while a PhD makes a contribution to potentially knowledges in the sense of literature, theory, or methodology. And so in that sense, what we have now is Victor, who's going to present to us a transfer seminar, who's going to suggest how his thesis is now a thesis of the nature of a PhD and why that has shifted and changed. And so that's what we move to at this moment. There are assessors online for us as well, so my thanks to, well, actually one of them is here at the moment, I think. I'm waiting for so we were waiting for Professor Ali to join us, but Recess is here, which of course is, and hi. So I think we'll make a start, and I'll message Ali for him to come up online. Irfan, is Richard here as well?
I'm just trying to figure out where is he. He was supposed to join. Ali is in the team, so he got lost there. He's joining back in Zoom. Yeah.
Right. So we'll make a start, I think, on that basis.
Yeah. We'll start.
And my apologies again for the university email system, which automatically attaches Teams invites to other invites, which is just not overly helpful. And you send it out and then go, oh, I forgot to, sending out 1,000 invites to get people to come, you sometimes forget to delete. So my apologies for that, for those people that are spending some time hanging out in Teams by themselves. All right, Victor, let's make a start. I'll hand it over to you. I'll start the recording. Thanks very much for your preparation. My thanks to your supervisors, to Richard, and also to Irfan as well as your primary supervisor.
Okay, thank you, Prof. David. First of all,
recording in progress.
Good morning, everyone here in Singapore, City Campus, Australia, and everyone else on the Zoom platform. Thanks to Jessica for a wonderful presentation and kicking off the early morning session. I remember I got an early morning slot during my confirmation seminar as well. It was quite unnerving. Okay, so thank you for taking time to attend my transfer seminar, and my research project topic is shown on the title slide on the screen now, and I'll read it. A necessary disruption in a disrupted world. Okay, so what I'm really interested in finding out is the phenomenon of a double disruption in the supply chain sector. Okay, the first disruption is the disruption that encompasses digital tools and technologies. For example, big data, blockchain, cloud services that have changed the value proposition of supply chain firms. Whereas the second disruption considers the various negative shocks and sudden events that have been shaking the business world of late. Okay, instead, rather than jumping straight into the outline or the agenda of today's presentation, okay, I thought of sharing a little introduction of myself. And I recall with my supervisory panel, right, the very first email that I wrote to Dr. Irfan was a long email, more than a page, describing the 3 approaches that I would like to undertake for collecting my data. And from the first meeting, I jumped on and I went straight into that. And then Professor Richard Hu was kind enough to stop me. Hey, wait, Victor, we don't know you yet. Okay, why don't you introduce yourself to us? Okay, so I'll do that right now. Okay, I've obtained my master's quite recently, just 4 years ago. And why the particular passion about supply chain management draws from my work experience. I've worked in all 5 stages of the supply chain, and I've also began teaching subjects like supply chain management, SCM, and global engineering strategy 1 year after obtaining my master's. Probably it's worthwhile to say that my bachelor's degree was in engineering from NUS here. And professionally, my present job role is as the innovation lead and program manager for a logistics firm. and I am responsible for designing and initiating an Industry 4.0 transformation project, incorporating Internet of Things, cloud and localized Wi-Fi connectivity, RFID and QR technology. And I do not like to use the word artificial intelligence quite loosely, but indeed, the AI robot, the autonomous robots that we will be implementing in our projects actually have some machine learning capabilities. And given a task, right, it can decide on which of the tasks to complete, which floor of the warehouse to go to, and it makes its own decision to take the shortest route, for instance. Okay, with that, I'll jump into the outline of today's transfer seminar. Point one and point two includes some slides that are old and some slides that are prepared for this seminar. And I'll probably take just 10 minutes to run through those for the benefit of those in the audience who have not attended my introductory and the confirmation seminar, to give them a contextual background, okay, literature review as well. And then I'll spend more time on discussing on the theoretical foundation, okay, my potential contribution to literature in terms of theory and practice. Okay, I'm going to spend much more time here, probably 20 minutes, 25 minutes. And of course, I'll round it up with the proposed research approach and methodology, and also the data collection and timeline. Okay, in the previous seminars, I have actually laid out the definitions of what is digitization, what is digitalization, what is digital transformation, and what is digital disruption. Okay, I won't do that again. And I will also explain what are the 5 stages of supply chain management. Okay, this round I'm going to focus on the second disruption, okay, which is the disrupted supply chain sector, where it's undergoing negative shocks and events. Okay, in previous seminars, it's always surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic. And I thought that right now, as you can see, with some of the assessors and a panel of professors coming over from Australia into the Singapore campus, I mean, we are soon going to step out of the pandemic, and I probably need to do a more current and contemporary context of my research. And so, okay, I'm going to include more negative shocks and events or detrimental events to define what is a disrupted supply chain sector. So last year in March, immediate ramifications were observed when a container ship, the Evergreen, right, was grounded on Suez Canal, okay, and that actually caused a huge disruption on the global supply chain, because Suez Canal actually is on the main shipping route, okay. And probably a lot of you are not aware, but on the first day of this month, September 1st, 2022, a Singaporean flag oil tanker actually ran aground in Egypt as well, Suez Canal, and it blocked the man-made waterway, but thankfully that was resolved within a day, okay. And how about that on the bottom left, that image provided by marine traffic, okay, with China adopting a zero COVID tolerance policy, right? As Shanghai went into lockdowns, most recently for 2 months over April and May this year. And what happens then? Okay, the icons in red actually shows the vessels that are leaving the port, and the icons in green are the number of vessels, container ships that are entering and they are waiting in anchorage to discharge or unload the containers and cargoes. Okay, and it's probably worthwhile to say that Port of Shanghai overtook the Port of Singapore in year 2010 as the world's busiest port, #1 port in the world. And you can see the detrimental effects that it probably have the global supply chain, okay, shipping line as well. Okay, and of course in the bottom right corner, the current crisis that's going on in Ukraine, and they're still ongoing, and that has actually placed an additional strain on the global supply chain, particularly on the food shortage crisis. Okay, so that will be second disruption. Okay, why the significance of digital disruption? Okay, I think the contents of the slide speaks for itself. Okay, and also why am I casting the spotlight on supply chain during this disrupted era. Okay, and I'll probably do a quick problematization of my research. And I know academics like this, so when we're talking about big data, right, there are the 5 V's: the velocity, the volume, value, variety, and the veracity. Okay, so I've come up with my 4 R's as well. It's pretty important to go through this because I'll be making references. I'll be drawing on these 4 R's subsequently in the next slide and subsequently. Okay, the readiness of business model and the responsiveness, resilience and robustness are 2 dominant concepts in SEM studies, and I've made those definitions in my thesis. Okay, moving on, the research problems or where the gaps are. Okay, we have observed that the pandemic has indeed quickened the digital adoption rate, and then negative events. Okay, more than the pandemic, as I've showed in the previous slide on the disruptive events, sudden shocks have altered the customer buying behavior, and with that, there are new uncertainties and variabilities in demand. And moving forward, the digital transformation, the ongoing digital transformation is expected to play a vital role. Okay, without the supporting literature, these are all conjectures on my part. Okay, and so I brought in some very recent literature that indeed, okay, there's a rapid digital disruption and causing a gap, a widening gap, if I may add, as the practice quickly adopt digital technologies and the literature has fallen behind. And that's supported by the literature. And furthermore, Ashmal et al. Just last year urged academics to include more participants from different countries, from different industry sectors to generate useful and practical recommendations. And in overcoming uncertainties, demand uncertainties, responsiveness is key. Okay, as negative events put the resilience and the robustness of global supply chain to the test. And really, there's a lack of solid scholarly attempts to unite the digital adoption in practice, which really my research is gonna focus on narrowing this gap. Okay. A quick look at my research questions. The overarching question, the central question, have changed slightly from the comments of the assessors during my confirmation, that it used to be what are the impacts of digital disruption on supply chain. So I think Prof. Naomi, right, said that probably it's not complete, so I've altered it a bit. And also RQ2, what has digital disruption impacted on supply chain visibility and performance? It used to say demand forecasting, but I thought that what I'm really measuring as one of my mediating variables, right, is really supply visibility and how that can promote demand forecast accuracy and hence going forward and contribute to supply chain and overall organizational performance. Okay, my research questions and sub-questions encompass of 2 whats and a how and a why. And I think previously I've cited the why, how come the how and the why questions are really important to produce a more illustrated and comprehensive understanding of my project. Okay, and also from my confirmation seminar, I think I admit I probably didn't do a good job as setting Singapore as the case of my research. And I recall Dr. Melissa and Prof. Tracy mentioned that probably I need to expand on this. And from during the confirmation seminar, I only draw on the top left corner that Singapore tops the Asian Digital Transformation Index. Okay, and so moving forward to support or justify why am I carrying out my research in Singapore as the research case is, okay, Singapore also tops Asia in terms of digital infrastructure domain, okay, which comprises of ICT investment and also legislation. Okay, furthermore, I draw from the I cited the World Bank blogs, 3 factors that made Singapore a global logistics hub, and these 3 factors being connectivity, digital infrastructure, and also digital processes. Okay, and really, what's the outcome from these 3 factors? Okay, 20 of the world's top 25 logistics firms there's 80% of the top logistics firm manage their global supply chain operations out from Singapore. I think that's pretty impressive. And also from a report by PricewaterhouseCoopers, that's the bottom right, you can see Singapore ranks first out of 30 global cities, okay, in terms of the technology readiness index. And what are the metrics used in this measurement? Digital security, internet access, software development, and also adoption of other digital tools. Okay, so with this slide, I hope I clarify what was really missing in my confirmation seminar. Okay, and moving on into literature review very quickly, what are the 10 digital technologies that I'll be investigating into? Okay, previously in the previous slide, I showed that there was a lack of scholarly articles to unite, okay, supply chain papers that study into digital adoption, okay, of and digital technologies that are used in practice, okay, in the supply chain. So these are the 10, and how are they derived? Okay, the next slide is an old slide, okay, that this table that I prepared, and it shows the disjointed literature. You see, is a little bit all over the place, and generally authors, right, pick the digital technologies that they are well versed in, they probably have experience in, okay, and they research into that. Okay, but I find that's a bit lacking, and probably why don't I, in my research, I carry out on all 10, okay, because these are actually carried out in practice, okay. And I really recall, I think same from Dr. Melissa and Prof. Tracy, they suggest, hey, why don't I arrange this in chronological order, and probably I can see a trend, and that could probably contribute, that can justify my theoretical contribution. And that's exactly what I did. Okay, so if you look at the top row, okay, AI actually really was coined in the Dartmouth Conference, 1950s. Okay, ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning Systems in the 1960s, and augmented reality and RFID, that's radio frequency identification, in 1968 and 1983 respectively. E-commerce 2000, big data and cloud services 2005 and 2006, blockchain 2011, and the 5G connectivity network actually was started in December of 2019. So it really popularized around the world at the start of 2020. Okay, so some trends aspire, okay, obviously the top right corner, those boxes are empty because those digital technologies are really not introduced yet, okay. And a lot of studies focus on IoT. You see many dots there, and not surprisingly, the 3 dots at the bottom right on 5G started after 2021, because 5G network really actually popularized in 2020. Okay, I'm sure if I expand my literature review upwards in the top left corner here, and I go backwards, I'll see more dots populated, and I can see a very good trend there. But as I was doing this exercise, I scratched my head a little bit, and I asked myself, is this a direction that I really want to go into? I'm not so sure. Probably in the Q&A session later, Dr. Melissa and Prof. Tracy probably can guide me along here, and where should I go head in this direction. But what that I am really interested in finding out, or carrying out rather, is a more contemporary research, a comprehensive yet contemporary. Okay, as shown by Chiang et al. And also Raza, both in 2021, they find that an assessment window that is too wide probably diluted the accuracy, right? And Chiang et al. Did a systematic literature review over the past 30 years, and Raza did it over the past 20 years, and they find that actually we probably need to leverage more on the current empirical data for validation.
Victor, can I just intervene for a second? Can I just ask you to, we've seen quite a lot of this work already. Do you mind just moving us on forward perhaps to the argument around why this is now a PhD? Is that okay? Sorry to intervene.
No problem. From this slide onwards is their new slides. Thank you, Prof. Carter. Okay, so to justify the transfer to PhD, so theoretical foundation, how will I be doing it? Okay, I'm going to draw from the existing theory from literature review and finding the gaps. Okay, and it is important that me as the chief investigator to be familiar with the theories and also the research designs that are prevalent in my academic field, that's SCM. And I'll quote Chalmers in 1999. He proposed the concept of theory derivation from fact in a direct and logical manner. Okay, and how would I be exhibiting my unique contribution? Okay, I'll be drawing from two existing theories. Okay, and that will be the organizational information processing (OIP) theory and the systems theory. Okay, I'll be tracking the evolution of these theories. Okay, leading to the application in SCM studies. Okay, before linking the theoretical constructs to find gaps in these theories and apply it now in a disrupted context. Okay, to explain new phenomena that has not been observed before in the disrupted supply chain sector. Okay, this is an old slide. Okay, I'm not going to read from it. Previously, I've done it. But in a nutshell, systems theory advocates stability over time and can be applied to organizations for providing long-standing solutions that are useful in tackling complex situations like a disrupted period. Okay, so how I'm going to draw from theory, I'm going to expand on this theory and I'm going to explain new phenomena. For this instance, new phenomena is happening with the supply chain sector undergoing negative shocks and events. Okay, and Prof. Carter, yourself, you mentioned during my confirmation seminar that I talk a lot about collaboration. I probably have to expand on it. Okay, I'm going to expand on it through an examination via the linkage with systems theory. Okay, in support of supply chain collaboration that's required for improving performance, I'll unpack from this theory, okay, the system theory, which advocates shared collaboration between leadership and employees. Okay, and this will allow me to carry out in-depth investigation on the collaboration between people and technology and also the collaboration within digital technologies. There will be the two purple rings. And the two green rings, okay, I'll be looking into the collaborative efforts that a supply chain firm should instill through digital transformation and also explore the possible digital collaborations between supply chain actors. And the orange ring at the bottom really shows a new phenomenon of cross-border collaboration in a disrupted business environment. So if I use the example of COVID-19, say in Singapore, when we go into a national lockdown, okay, we immediately went into a food crisis because a lot of our food supplies actually comes from Malaysia, our neighbor, and we have two linkways, or we call it the causeways, and government has to intervene and initiate some measures for food trucks, okay, to bring in our poultry supply, our vegetable supply, and our fruit supplies, and that's a cross-border collaboration that I'll be examining as well. Okay, next on the OIP theory, again, I've gone through the evolution and the application to SCM, but in a nutshell, okay, the OIP theory posits that that organization require vaster information, more information when executing tasks that involves high level of uncertainty and interdependence. And hence, I'll draw from the OIP theory to support, okay, the adoption of digital technologies for increased supply chain visibility, okay, which ultimately leads to improved performance as well. Okay, I'm going to progress this theory and also to provide a contemporary context to study the disrupted supply chain. Okay, very quickly on the supply chain visibility, examine through the theoretical lens of OIP, okay, that Oliveira and Henfield 2019 employed the OIP theory and its analytical foundations for development of real-time SCM competence. Okay, real-time means with digital technologies that actually facilitates that real-time monitoring, okay, and data sharing, and found categorization of high levels of supply chain visibility, okay, and furthermore the role of data processing in entailing supply chain firms suffering from negative shocks was useful, and also the OIP provides the insights to supply chain firms' behavior when undergoing negative events. Okay, last but not least, the OIP theory is strategic in reducing supply chain uncertainty, and also it complements visibility for responsiveness, another R. Okay, the conceptual model, we have cleared this in the previous seminar, so I won't talk too much about it. And I would like to talk about 3 paradigm shifts before going to the next slide that talks about my contribution to literature and particularly to theory. Okay, in the iconic book, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, right? Thomas Kuhn described paradigm shift as a new representation of scientific evolution, and that a novel theoretical model must be invented when old theory can no longer explain a new phenomenon. Okay, and online shopping, as you see from the site, is not exactly new. Okay, it has been around since the year 2000. Okay, however, I've evidence from KPMG Business Advisory showing that the peak of online shopping coincides with the peak of the pandemic in 2020, and that Contractor 2021 further postulates that with consumers getting used to online shopping, okay, to the peak of activity, they will continue to rise up even post pandemic and or also post negative events. Customer centricity, okay. While teaching SEM, I use a lot of this textbook by Christopher Martin, and they talk about why do we call it supply chain management? Why don't we call it demand chain management, right? Okay, because yesterday's model is a lot on the manufacturers producing in mass production, and they leverage on economies of scale, right? And then they adopt a mass marketing and they push the products. They push the products to the consumer. Whereas in today's world, okay, look at the phones in your pockets or on your hands. Every phone is different, okay? And with that demand-centric or that customer centricity, okay, the digital data sharing and processing, right, to increase the supply chain visibility becomes really important as it becomes customer playing the lead role of pooling products and services. And of course, the last paradigm shift that I've already explained in the previous slide is the cross-border collaboration. So these are the 3 paradigm shifts that I will need to address, okay, for both academic and practice, okay, in my contribution to the body of knowledge, okay. Contribution to literature, okay. So how will I be contributing? I'll be carrying out a holistic investigation on all 10 digital technologies that have been applied to the supply chain sector. Okay, we've seen in literature that no authors have done that. Okay, some of the, if you observe the bottom 2, there was an author. There were authors that carry out on 8 or 7 or 8, and those are books. Okay, and so that's what I'll be doing, and I'll be not only leveraging on the extant literature, but also by collecting new empirical data and findings, and to record the emergent digital disruptions and new applications that have been operationalized, okay, as my contribution to knowledge. And in terms of contribution to theory, okay, I'll build my theory from unfolding real life issues, okay, examine the paradigm shifts in the supply chain sector, okay, and I'll be also highlighting the emerging trends in the literature and explain how my theoretical model will build and expand from the existing theories. Okay, the next slide, which I would like to call the money slide, okay, systems theory and OIP theory. Okay, just now I've talked about a bit on its early evolution. Okay, and okay, for system dependency, the systems theory really look at an organization, a system as a whole, a collective, as in a collection of things. The components have to be looked as a whole, as dependent on one another. Whereas the OIP theory, okay, applies its fundamental approach of information processing to cast an impact on supply chain functions and operations, which are often intertwined and interdependent. And collectively, both the systems theory and OIP, okay, promotes an and interconnectedness, or the organizational, the structural approach for looking at supply chain firms when facing a complex, okay, or prolonged recovery. Okay, which brings me to my next phase of the theory development. Okay, there will be the application to supply chain. Okay, so system theory, yeah, talk about a lot about system dependency, and OIP talk about interdependency. And that interconnectedness, right? Okay, OIP proposed that the planning completeness is critical, particularly so in supply chain management, where the tasks are highly interconnected in nature. Okay, whereas system theory then would bring in from the interconnectedness and explain the connection between digital disruption and the performance impacts. Okay, and next, the disruption phase, or if I would like to call it the double disruption phase. Okay, the complexity that the system theory brings is saying that, as I mentioned before, that for organizations, they are undergoing ever-changing climate, right? When it's undergoing shocks, right? It ought to be dynamic. Okay, and the OIP theory, on the other hand, posits that task uncertainty are associated with the organizational form, and that supply chain firms undergoing negative shocks ought to utilize information in an effective way when carrying out tasks. And a common attribute, or collectively, I'll be looking at stability. Remember that systems theory advocates stability over time, and OIP applies the role of data gathering and information processing to promote stability. Okay, in unifying both theory, okay, that would be my contribution of this thesis. Okay, I'll be unifying the organizational form and the interdependence nature of OIP with system theory, okay, to aid the understanding and the study of supply chain firms in an interconnected fashion. Okay, and I will further address the lacking parts of the theory to arrest, okay, the effects of sudden negative negative shocks rather on the business performance of the digitally transformed supply chain sector. Okay, all this will be done still based on the profound understanding and the support of the existing theories, notwithstanding that. Okay, and this theory will contribute to knowledge, okay, in terms of a novel theoretical model that's developed through a proper adaptation and also on grounded frameworks. Okay, so how am I going to progress this theory? In progression, okay, leading to the collaboration, visibility, and performance. And I always remember what my professor, my Prof. Richard says, that it is crucial to produce a practical contribution at the same time, even if this has swung into a PhD track. And it is crucial to link and demonstrate the application of knowledge to the real-world analysis of problems. Okay, and so this will lead me to the contribution of practice. Okay, how this project will contribute. Okay, serves to provide managers in supply chain sector with some recommendations, highlight some of these key digital disruption trends that managers should be looking out for. Okay, promote better adoption of digital tools and technologies and expand awareness, and also make some improvement, okay, in terms of digital integration and also digital partnerships. Okay, and I would like to extend digital transformation strategy as itself to stimulate organizational cultural change, because I believe that humans are at the center of the digital revolution. So when I'm investigating the collaboration between people and digital technology, right, I should be looking at organizational culture as well, because ultimately humans are driving the technology and not the other way around. Okay, and quickly, we have seen this before. I'm going to adopt the sequential explanatory design as part of my as the selected mixed methods research, really to enable the investigation of theoretical motifs in greater depth from the ontological and also the epistemological fronts. Okay, a more well-rounded So it's going to be first quant, then qual, quanti, then quali. How would it look like? So in the quanti stage, I'll be carrying out a survey through an online questionnaire, okay, and then I'll be using SPSS for the first stage of data analysis. Before this results be feeded, okay, I can tweak it later. Some interesting questions will have come out, and that will be my focus group, and my focus group will be encompassed of key appointment holders of supply chain functions, and they will constitute the key informant, okay, as part of my focus group interviews. And then subsequently I'll do a second data analysis. And for sampling population, 250 to 300 respondents for online questionnaire drawn from industry with significant supply chain functions. And for the sequential qualitative stage, focus group, 2 to 3 sessions, each sessions 8 to 10 participants. Okay, and quick look at the time frame, still achievable, and I've prepared a concluding remark, concluding slide. And I think it's important to distinguish between the difference between a PhD thesis and the DBA. And I've gone through this with my supervisory panel. This is taken from the HDR thesis submission and examination format guidelines. Okay, it's important to distinguish, but is at the same time we should not differentiate. There should be no superiority between the DBA and the PhD. Okay, whereas the PhD make a distinct and significant contribution to knowledge and also evidence of originality or uniqueness. Okay, just like the DBA, they make a distinct contribution to the improvement of professional practice or policy. Okay, a researcher from an academic background will probably struggle in going the DBA track, just like a researcher coming from a practice background will probably find it different. But why am I going it over? Because my research has now taken a different direction. Okay, and based on the theoretical nature of my contribution to knowledge, right, and also my academic career path, okay, and a transfer over the PhD degree with a particular focus on the addressment of expected contribution to knowledge, okay, in advancing theory and at the same time practice as well. I think the transfer would be a most fitting direction for myself. Okay, so with that, I'm going to run through just a list of references. I got 7 slides of that, and I'm going to open. I would like to open the floor to questions, comments, and probably starting with the assessor then first. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Victor, and thank you for working through the presentation. All right, so let me invite, first of all, your assessors. I'll come to you soon, Marjan, but first of all, let me invite Professor Kazai, if he's there, if he wants to start. Feel free to take the floor.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor Carter. Now, to the candidate, I was also an assessor for your confirmation seminar, and I have noticed that you have advanced your writing a lot, and I'm very happy. Most importantly, I would like to congratulate you and your supervisor that you have clearly shown us the difference between DBA and PhD. And this is the first requirement to be fulfilled, whether you are aware of that. Okay, in one sentence, I would like to tell you my comment on this. DBA mainly contributes to practice, and PhD mainly contributes to theory, mainly, and practice and others are there. So this is and you have articulated that very successfully. Now, I have few comments or mainly suggestions, because I was your assessor before, so I can see that in some cases I have very valuable suggestions for you. Firstly, we suggested that your title should be changed to a more focused one. Now, as you know, the sector, which is very vague, doesn't mean anything to me. And if you look at your research questions, your research conceptual model, you will see what's happening there. Okay, you need to do a little bit of work in there. I'm not saying that it's any fundamental, just a comment. If you look at your conceptual model, you will see what you are doing. You're actually assessing the impact of disruption on performance and organizational performance as well. You understand?
Yes.
This is not reflected in your title. What is you have a title of saying that impact of design on the performance? All right. This is what you are assessing in a sense. Am I right?
Yes, you're right, Professor.
Okay, just take some notes. It's not a major thing. Anyway, then your methodology. I mentioned to you before that sequential order of the methodology in that field, there are some milestone research. I don't know whether you have read it. I haven't seen the reference. I mentioned before. It's called, the title of the paper is Mixed Method Research, a research paradigm whose time has come, by Bo, B-U-R-K, Johnson and his colleague Anthony. You must read this article, please. Mixed method research. What these articles talk about is when you're using sequence, you need to convince the examiner or assessor that the primary focus in your case is quantitative, isn't it? Followed by qual. There are reverse practice as well. Some people start with qual and go to quant. In one of my PhD students started quant and then went to qual and then quant again. It's not rare. It's fine. I don't raise any question. Please read Johnson's paper, Mixed Method Research, a research paradigm whose time has come. He has then talked about, there is a table there, talked about the sequence and weighting, like 60% qualitative, 40% quantity. Okay, which one is the main focus? So if you read this paper, everything will be clear to you. Okay, and there are a lot of saying that mixture of the two methods are not desirable, but in your case, you have substantiated your claim, and I'm happy with it. Okay. Now, as I said, conceptual framework, my friend, you are doing a Doctoral philosophy, not degree anymore. So, the conceptual framework has to, as you said, you are unifying two theories. That has to be fully reflected in the framework, research framework or conceptual framework, whatever you say. Okay? So, all writings are there, and I've seen your chapters. I'm very happy, but there's a tendency for overkill. You have discussed many things, which you may not, but it's as if you can't then add. So, like you discussed about COVID a lot. Please cut it short, but that's not actually relevant to your conceptual model. So now, if they're aligned with your title, with your conceptual framework, is wonderful. I loved it. Okay, and then your main research question has to be little different, Like you said, impact on the sector, you have to impact with performance. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
If you are consistent with all this, okay. And sub research questions are wonderful. It reflects your theoretical model. Now, theoretical contributions, and this is a sort of knowledge I would like to share with you. There are two types of theoretical contribution. One is fundamental, other is incremental. Please note, what sort of contribution are you making? Fundamental change, like the theories in physics, you are changing the whole thing. You are not actually, isn't it? Then what are you doing? Are you adding to the theory? Are you altering the theory? Are you revising the theory? Or define the theory? It has to be very clear. Okay? In this case, I believe you are doing little bit of revision and addition. Is that right? In the context of supply chain. So you have to make it very clear. But all writings are there. I said there are a lot of overkill there, but just cut short. Okay. Discussion of COVID should be short. Now, research questions I have told you, as you know, when you do the literature review, there are two parts of it. One is called literature scan. You report whatever you see there. And then next phase is literature review. And in review, you add your own comments. And review will help you in identifying the gaps. Okay? When there is a gap, from that gap, you develop key research questions or key issues around which the research will center. All right? And then, when it has been done, it has to be reflected in research question, objectives, etc. Just alignment thing, and you nothing to change, just adding a little bit word or something. So, title, your research framework, theory, etc. There should be no confusion, nowhere. People will know what you are doing, what you are talking about, and what are your contributions. And these are some of my suggestions. And I'm very pleased that you have advanced your writings, your knowledge too. And the last slide you have shown us that you are quite aware of the differing requirements for PhD research and standard. And keeping that in mind, I would like to congratulate you on such a wonderful presentation, and I wish you good luck for transfer. Thank you. I will let the committee know about my assessment in writing very soon, and it's good, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor, for your comments and your kind words. Yeah. I'll take note of each and every of the points.
Thanks so much, Ali, for your insights. I'm going to call on Rosetta. Do you have any feedback you'd like to give at this stage?
Yeah, I'd like to say congratulations, Victor, to come to do it, start with a DBA and then to realise at the right time that you need to transfer it to PhD. Well done you, and congratulations to your panel for encouraging you to do that and to step up. I have a couple of things to say, not many, but just where I got lost sometimes in your explanation. Maybe it's because I didn't have a background from your earlier work, but I'd like to see, I don't know how you reconcile in your research problems where the gaps are. You're saying that academics are urged to include different participants from different countries and industry sectors, and yet you spend a lot of time saying I'm going to do it in Singapore. I really liked your statistics about Singapore, and I thought it's a strong case in itself, but I'm wondering about why you chose that particular reference there. The supply chain collaboration, I know you're an expert in supply chain, but I would have liked to see you talk a little bit more about the cross-border collaboration and why it's a new phenomena. If people are coming, supply chains are always coming from other places, so I don't understand why this is a new phenomena, and maybe you probably need to explain that. I can't imagine that in systems theory that cross-border collaboration would ever have been outside of that. So it would be good to know about. I think the same as Professor Ali, the conceptual model, I was thinking it was representative of something, and then while your one on page 30, which is contribution to theory, sort of suggests something else. I don't know where to go. When we go to contribution of thesis, you've drawn it as a black box, and I hope it isn't. So maybe maybe having a bit more explanation about what your contribution is, because does stability really go there? Because you're talking about complexity and uncertainty. Are you really expecting to find stability there? And if that is there, is it what managers would love to get stability out of something that's complex and uncertain? And I don't know that was really discussed and whether it needs to be there, but I'm not sure. So that's just a question that I have to ask. I did want to ask you about where you're at with your ethics approval. Have you got that done? Because in your timeline it says that it should be done by now, but you didn't talk about ethics much at all.
Yes, in my timeline, I said the data collection is going to start next month. Ethic, I'm now at a minor changes, so I think it's what I call that. So I made a clarification round, and they came back with a few points and minor changes. Yeah, so probably I just need to hand it up again probably next week, early next week.
Okay, and I have just done the sampling population. Not my area, but here's a focus group of only. So what are we talking about? 30 people there. That's 10%. That's so. You mentioned key appointment holders of supply chain firms, and I would have liked to see like who are your key appointment holders in supply chain. That would have been a good diagram as well. For context about what we're looking at in supply chain, who's important and what it has to do with your study, who are you going to include and who are you going to miss out, I suppose would be good there, just as a stakeholder picture. Otherwise, I think it was it's good. It's really good. You've presented it very well. Thank you for that. And good luck.
Thank you, Dr. Romano. So to answer your question on the key appointment holders and the focus groups, why am I doing 2 to 3 and consisting of 8 to 10? I think I have the guest it all in 2017 mentioned that this size actually they found is 2.7 focus group, and that will satisfy 80% of all research teams. And for my key appointment holders, okay, I'm drawing from 3 industry sectors that I'm familiar with. Okay, one will be the logistics service provider. I think that gives a very good context to the relevance of study, and this logistics sector probably adopt a rapid adoption of digital technologies for their freight forwarding services, including cross-border regulations during the time of undergoing a negative shock or disrupted period. Second, I know the strategic head of a leading supermarket chain here in Singapore, and that's why I'll be going to some of the key appointment holders there as well. And I think for the supermarket sector, they probably see an upsurge of e-commerce and online activities during the disrupted period as well. And it probably gives a good context that is easily understood by the wider audience, the supermarket. And the last one, I'm going to draw from my former professional practice in the offshore location, where that's okay, it's 30 days on, 30 days off, right? So supplies only reach them every 30 days, and that's why a very effective and efficient supply chain management is critical there. So that gives probably the scope, wide scope enough for possibly generalizing my findings for future research as well.
Just one other point, and it's only a really minor one, but when you're talking about, let's say, literature review 2 and then you do literature review 3, your pictures take a different order, and maybe that's stopping you finding a pattern as well. So if you align the columns up, you might see other patterns that you're maybe not even aware of. And that's all. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Dr. Roman. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Rosetta, for joining us this morning and for your feedback and advice. Much appreciated generally. Marjan's had a virtual hand up for quite some time, so I'll ask her to talk now, if that's okay.
Thank you, Victor. Very interesting. And I see some commonalities between what you're doing and what I did for my master's thesis in 2006-2007. So it's interesting that all these technologies are changing, but we are still talking about digitalization, disruption, and its impact or influence in supply chain management and performance in general. So I think these days we are talking about automation using AI and those type of various very sophisticated type of robots, which can help a lot to save time, but also be effective in terms of providing functional solutions. So we are talking about using robots that they can move objects, and we are talking about AI, which can really help to provide more context-specific solution and personalize the supply chain. So my question here is, when you talk about digitalization, why not having a bit of more focus and really talk about a specific type of technology, let's say automation and robot in particular, or AI, something a bit more up to date, rather than ERP and RFID and barcodes, which is getting a little bit obsolete, I think. Also, so that might give you a bit of focus, but also the goal of the supply chain. What is the goal of the supply chain? Is it about humanitarian relief? So it's more human-centric, and it also involves a lot of uncertainty. For example, helping people when earthquake occurs. And all those aspects you mentioned about preparedness, response, and resilience, so they're all very much applicable. Or is this about saving costs and efficiency? So it's about really, making profit. So what's the goal? And who is running or managing this supply chain? So is this about government? Is this about, like a particular brand, a goods manufacturer, which they're dealing with procurement, but also retail? So I think it makes sense, or it might help you to have a bit of focus in terms of what is the goal of supply chain, and what technology specifically. But it's very interesting, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of room for contribution. You also made mention of integration. That's one of the problems that supply chain nodes always have to deal with. So think about humanitarian relief and humanitarian supply chain. One question could be, okay, they need to buy trucks, so they probably have some sort of deal with Mercedes-Benz, and they also need to buy ships so that they can move these trucks from one city or location to another one, but then the size of the ship doesn't fit the size of the truck. So there's no communication between all these different nodes. So I quite understand how that integration is important, but who is really managing this supply chain? Who is responsible for this integration to happen? Is this about the government? Is this about private sector? Is this about collaboration between private and public? So very interesting topic, really. But as mentioned by your assessors, I think having a bit of focus and really trying to have major contribution and finding out what's the gap in the literature can help a lot. So good luck. A very interesting place for contribution.
Thank you, Dr. Marjan. Thank you.
Thanks, Marjan. I suppose just one final comment, I suspect, which is reflecting a little bit of that, which is I think, context matters. And I think the moment you're pitching it pretty broad, and PhDs can't be broad, right? PhDs are always a pretty limited study of a macro phenomena. So I suspect what you would want to think a little bit more about here is, and I think Marjan's point is precisely accurate here, which is that there are levels of disruption, right? And I suspect you're talking about big, and you're interested in big disruption, but that's only going to affect a very small component of supply chain questions generally, which is that realistically, the minor changes which are disruptive at one level, are probably what is important to the average supply chain, but you tend to be pitching it in this very almost grandiose sense. And I think there's a sense you're almost over-promising in the thesis. Be careful about that, because examiners will really pull you back on that if you go further than what you're actually able to do. So be confident that your study is a deep study of a small part of the macro phenomena, and it points to the big. Don't overpromise what it can't do, because then you're going to get pulled up. But I think you got comments around that generally. So thanks, Victor, for a really interesting presentation, and thanks to the comments and questions from both the assessors and others. So my thanks to Rosetta and Ali for coming on this morning and for their insight. My thanks, of course, to your supervisors. Richard has jumped over to begin his chairing of the other session, but thanks for that. And also to Irfan for his supervision support as well. So thanks very much, Victor. Congratulations, well done.
Recording stopped.
Okay, so we move into our first parallel session of the Singapore weekend. So we have two, as you would have seen in the chat function, we have two work in progress seminars. Those are happening at the moment, or about to start, sorry, over in the session that's hosted by Richard Hill, and my thanks to that. To join a breakout room, my understanding is that on the bottom menu there is the breakout room, and you just elect